most obvious is optimizing. Optimizing means making business better. It's improving business processes, it's improving profitability, it's improving service levels. So optimizing is like the headline. Within that, or related to that, is automating. So being able to automate some processes that are still very human run and cumbersome, repetitive, a lot of that can be automated using these type of algorithms. And the third, no less, is peace of mind. We're allowing managers to do their job better and sleep better at night. And it's a big benefit and a big advantage. And the feedback that we're getting from a lot of these stressed out logistics managers is, oh, we want that. We want that aspect of AI.
Welcome back to another edition here on Mentory TV. And today we're going to look at logistics. You may think logistics, huh? Well, that's boring. What is logistics anyway? But what if I tell you that we, everybody, you and I, we depend on anything that we want to go from where it originates to our doorstep or into the shops where we want to buy it and pick it up. That is logistics. And if I look at the sector more and more, I actually can compare it with like the operating system of our global economy. You could also compare it to, let's say, the blood that flows through our body. Without logistics, there is no movement, there's no mobility, there is no order to remittance. Or last one, maybe as a comparison, you could compare it to cash flow in the business. No cash, no business, no business, no cash, if you're not careful. So logistics really is important. And this is why we at Falco Global Partners actually invest in that sector, in the digital part of the sector, in the part that is really more, let's say, in the AI realm of the business. And this is why today I'm going to talk to Eldad Granot. He is the co-founder and CEO of Amphorica. And Amphorica is a software as a service business, a platform that is a logistics platform powered by AI, AI being artificial intelligence. Eldad, so great to have you on the show.
It's my pleasure. In fact, I'm excited and looking forward to this conversation.
Well, you know, when we were looking at your company right at the beginning, we're like, logistics, what the hell, you know, what is going on there? And then we found, of course, more and more out that the way we turn, the way we move, the way we started really living, you know, after the Second World War, got more and more globalized. So shipping goods is something that, of course, was always part of living, of trading. But the way it is done, the amount that it's done, and the efficiency that needs to be done it in is a totally different ballgame. Talk to us a little bit about where we are in the logistics sector today.
So generally speaking, and you're completely right that logistics is sort of the infrastructure service that runs almost any type of business or part of our lives, healthcare, commerce, finance even. You know, we think of finance being completely virtual and digital, but that's not true. There are things moving around, physical things, even in banks. And all of those equipment and materials and products that need to be supplied from one location to another location, that's logistics. And it's huge. It's not many people know this. It's $8 trillion business. It's like mind-boggling, and it's growing because exactly those trends of globalization and more and more e-commerce and a lot of aspects that, again, we're not so aware of in our daily life. But when we go to the doctor, there's logistics making that happen. And when we go to the supermarket, there's logistics. And when we place an order on Amazon or online anywhere, there's logistics in the background, and sometimes even much more than the background.
Exactly. And I think this is the exciting part. You know, it's always in the background. We expect things just to be there available for us, whatever product it is or wherever it is sourced from. And I think the entire, you know, value chain of a product from wherever it's made to wherever it lands is what we don't see. We just see, okay, we want this, and then the next day we have it at our doorstep. But the fascinating and the challenging part, and this is what I would like to talk about, as well are the main challenges. So, okay, things are running in the background, but things are the goods, the people, the machine, that crane from one place to the other. Talk to us about the main challenges, especially today.
Right. So again, logistics, everybody is kind of aware that things are made in, let's say, Asia, but they're not aware of the complexity of getting those things from the manufacturer or the warehouse through the land trucking onto ships or airplanes. And then again, when the destination it lands, you have to distribute it to again, warehouses and all the way to your home. Or to the business, or to the hospital, or to the wherever it is that these materials and products are end up being used. And that complexity of multiple handovers, multiple types of transportation methods, many documentation, regulation, compliance that needs to be adhered to, it makes logistics very hard. It's just simply a very important, but also very complex and difficult thing to manage, and especially to manage it cost effectively. We love to pay for our products, but we don't love to waste money on wasted, materials that broke on the way, or that arrived late, or all those issues. Now, the pandemic has sort of brought a lot of that up to the limelight, to the headlines. If we all knew that there was something happening in logistics for years, now we're kind of reading it day in, day out because of the disruptions. Literally, it's being called the global logistics crisis. We are still in it. It hasn't been fixed yet. It started partially because of the lockdowns and the quarantines and the pandemic, but also because, or together with that, exposed has been a lot of lack of resilience, and there's no plan B for things going wrong. And some of that, or a lot of that, are things that we at Amphorica are focusing on, because we're helping this huge ecosystem exactly that, to reduce risk and to add that layer of resilience or ability to get through crisis.
Absolutely. And I think what you were just saying is so fundamental. The complexity. And complexity always means there's many parts to the picture, and something somehow always needs to be controlled every step of the way. So we're looking at time efficiency, financial efficiency, also product quality in the entire system. So how does AI really assure this kind of risk management, especially if there is, something like a force majeure, like a weather storm happening, and I'm waiting. Let's talk about an application here. I'm waiting for a really important drug for me. So let's say in the pharmaceutical sector, as an application of logistics, AI-powered logistics.
Sure. So specifically, there are materials such as vaccines or medicine that need special care. It might be temperature control. It might be special handling because it's a breakable vial. It may be something that needs sterility, special sterility conditions from end to end, from the factory line all the way until the shot is administered in somebody's arm. And those aspects create another additional layer of complexity that normal, goods and materials logistics that exist anyway. What AI is, and maybe I'll back up half a second and just talk about which type of AI I'm talking about, because AI is kind of like a blanket term for a lot of technologies. But the type of AI that we are mostly focused on is machine learning AI, or machine learning algorithms. Those types of algorithms, which is basically another word for software, are enabling us limited humans to become sort of superhumans. And what it does is it allows us to teach the dummy, the computer, to be a logistics expert. So if we previously would depend on our experience, even though maybe we are very experienced, but still we're limited in our capacity, our experience, our time, our not making ever mistakes. Show me a human that never makes a mistake. And the quantity of tasks that we have, logistics managers are very, 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 very busy. If in the past we were dependent only on ourselves and our team, now finally we can use these type of algorithms that are creating insights and understanding, machine understanding on the computers to help us. And that's really like very generally what it's helping. So if for those specific examples like temperature control, if until now we, at best, were able to monitor with some type of thermometer or data logger device the conditions retrospectively when the package arrived, and we knew maybe that we had to discard a bad package because it had a temperature excursion. Now with machine learning, we can actually predict the level of risk. And even before the package goes onto the truck or the plane or the boat, we can make decisions about changing the operations, maybe better packaging materials, maybe sending it at a different time, a different method, adding some dry ice. There are a lot of things that we can do if we know the level of risk or the level of need to make a change. And AI is helping to do those type of things.
You see, Eldad, and this is what I'm so excited about. I like the predictive part of artificial intelligence. Okay, a lot of people, you can argue, say we are not yet in the realization of AI. It is machine learning, or it's augmented intelligence rather than artificial intelligence, which is all helping at the end of the day. As you were saying, you know, the most fallible of them all is really the human being, because we do have emotions and we do get confused when it comes to, you know, the ratio and the emotions.
Yeah. And just think about the amount of variables.
Yeah.
The number of variables that go into making a successful logistic mission, it's sometimes tens or maybe even hundreds of variables, many of them unknown. We don't even know the influence of sitting on the tarmac in the airport on the well-being of those vaccines. We just don't know it. And AI can help us know that and can give us that insight and understanding to make better human decisions. We still make human, like you said, it's not really handing everything over to the AI. It's augmented. So we are now better at what we do and have more peace of mind in what we do, thanks to this technology.
Yes. And again, let me also now back up, because you did that before, so I have to do this now as well. The machine learning, at the end of the day, we are feeding the beast, right? So whatever it is, still the human that inputs the data that then the machine takes, learns from, analyzes, finds pattern, and then we start getting into the really interesting prediction, risk prediction part, which then backtracks to, hey guys, you at this logistics companies, you better watch out for A, Y, and Z items in order to make sure that whatever you send off is going to arrive in time, financially efficient and undamaged.
Right. And maybe I even emphasize what you're saying, kind of by comparing normal statistics, which have been around for many, many, many years, and this type of machine learning AI. When you're analyzing data, and the raw material here is data always, you need to be able to understand statistics to understand the outcome of the data. The beauty of AI is that all of us, laymen, non-AI experts, can now have these tools at our fingertips. And it's not, I mean, some people are afraid AI is going to take over. No, it's not taking over. It's making us better. It's better managers, more accurate, having more capacity. With AI, you can automate some processes that until now it would take hours and hours and hours, one person or many people to do for a long time. And with AI, you can speed that up. Exactly. So all of these are advantages.
Exactly. And this is the edge where you approach your clients as well. First of all, the logistics business, I guess, for a long time was not even digital, you know, which is one of the main challenges. I mean, you can have AI only if you've got data, and the data being recorded in a digital format rather than on a piece of paper, right? The piece of paper needs to go in order to have anything happening in today's world, and that is happening. So when you go and approach your potential clients, what is the main angle you'd say they would be interested in? What are the pain points you can see with case studies, and how do you approach that?
Okay, so it really depends on who we're talking to, both who in terms of what type of company and also which function within the company. For example, company owners and CEOs, they have a broad perspective of the overall business and they want overall improvement. Operations managers or people on the dock loading trucks, they have a more operational perspective. And AI can help both those levels. And also, maybe I say a bit about the focus. since we are looking a lot about healthcare logistics and specifically small, medium companies who are struggling to catch up, I should say in parentheses, logistics is not a high margin business, right? It's a commodity business. So those medium-sized companies who are already digitizing, thankfully, and they're already collecting data, now they want to leverage that power, that asset that they're building, their data, world data, their segment data, and those advantages are coming to them at the right time in the right place. And this is where we, when we start a conversation with the customer, it's all our customers are partners, by the way. We view them as being partners because they're bringing their data. Without their data, we're nothing. But with their data, we are very powerful together. And matching their data with our algorithms and our analytics tools gives them specific solutions to their specific needs. And it could be anything from, like you said, starting to digitalize their operations, and all the way to optimizing and improving profits and better services, better use of their assets and their resources like manpower, all of those aspects.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the resource management, because that is a huge issue. Again, there the AI system can be as clever as can be. However, there's always people that plug in and plug out of work, even though they were part of the logistic plan for the day or for the week. How does AI, and especially also Amphorica, look at that HR, very hard to control part of the picture?
Right. So we typically think of humans as being less sort of organized and rational, but really humans emit data just like machines in a sense. Maybe the patterns are more complex, but in the end, if you can build a machine learning machine that knows how to anticipate, for example, how many people are going to be ill the next week, next month, next year, you can plan around that. You can use that for planning. One of the biggest and most complex problems that logistics companies has is how do we get our, let's say, drivers, the ones who are managing our assets and our missions. How do we get the right driver on the right truck with the right mission at the right time at the right cost? That's a very complicated puzzle, especially if you have tens or hundreds or maybe even thousands of such drivers and vehicles and customer constraints and missions that you need to complete. And it's like a huge Sudoku problem, but really huge, like not the extra hard one in the newspaper or whatever. It's like the biggest Sudoku problem. And doing it manually is pretentious, really. It's us, I wouldn't even attempt to do that. There are tools out there. They're still mostly manual. I mean, there are digital tools out there, but they're still depending on the ability and the experience of the foreman or the manager to plug people into missions. Or the flip side is they make fixed schedules. Fixed schedules by definition are inefficient because they don't take those variations into account. And what we're saying is we can use this type of machine learning, which has two aspects to it, the planning aspect and then the control or the ongoing management aspect. So if somebody calls in sick, with a press of a button, you can fix it or replace that person with another resource. And those fast and efficient and easy to use, they're frankly, in the end, they're very easy to implement, they just make sense. They simply make sense.
Yes, and it's real time. That's another aspect that I personally also love about logistics today is the continuous monitoring and fine-tuning what is happening, because my data is not just like a bunch of data, it seems, that I analyze and it's nice and static and I know more or less that nothing will change until I can execute on the data, but that's not true. And this is, again, where the artificial intelligence and the super intelligence may come into, is that you monitor real time and you adjust real time. So there's kind of like elasticity or fluidity that can come into your planning process. Is that right?
Exactly. And one of the things that we get sometimes from potential customers or partners is, but once the damage has been done, there's nothing to do about it. And that's not true. There's a lot to do about it. If you have a package sitting on the tarmac on a way station and in Schiphol in Amsterdam. And the ongoing flight, right? It's changing flights, and the ongoing flight is delayed by 6 hours. You can make a decision to send it back, to put it in a cold storage, to get on a different flight, to change the packaging or the ice inside. You can make a lot of decisions about that temperature controlled package that if you don't know, you just can't make. But now that you know, and you can automatically kind of get that insight of what the best action to do to remediate or to even prevent the problem that until today was considered inevitable, then why not do it? It's very cost effective and the right thing to do.
That would have been my next question, because if I think about a disruption like that in my logistical process, in really the mobility or the move of my product, it sits there for six hours. Of course, my cost efficiency was under the prediction that the puzzle, and I love that word, Eldad, that you used, we are putting these puzzle pieces together to make a mosaic and a picture that then should result in good quality, efficient time, and efficient financial management. But then a disruption like that happens. All right. So my decision in these 6 hours is going to have, however, an impact, the timing when my parcel arrives, and also in the cost efficiency, because did the AI system tell me about that potential black swan? Hey, listen, the margin of your package or of this type of delivery is between da-da, and there is a margin of error that is tracked as well.
Course. And not only can the AI tell us that in real time, but you can also plan around that so those variations or those anomalies in real time are minimal. And that's the beauty of being able to use this type of technology, both for planning and for control or management. What we're getting from customers is a request to help them with their own costing and their own pricing that takes into account a lot of these risks. Until today, either you had to have a bank of accountants if you're a bigger company, and it's still humans making these calculations, or you had to kind of depend on history and gut feeling. Both of them are not great approaches when disruption happens. Even when disruption doesn't happen, it doesn't necessarily optimize. But when disruption happens and you need to take into account the quality control variates, the operational variates, what can be done, and of course the financial variates, if you have to look at all those at once, a normal, typical human would maybe give it one try or try to kind of tweak and work around, but then give up and write it off as cost of doing business. There are losses. What can we do? We can't minimize losses. Yeah. But it's not true. Now we have tools that can help minimize losses. And I can't say that AI is going to solve every single problem in the logistics world. It's still a real-life world with real-life problems. But at least the visibility and the ability to understand that data coming from the real-time visibility is changing, and it's changing drastically. I mean, it's not just incremental change. Yeah, it's a revolution.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking, I'm actually thinking this is a paradigm shift. And the more I did my research also for our conversation, also during our due diligence before, partnering up with Amphorica at Falco Global, we were looking at exactly that, these supply chain issues, this kind of system seems to make sense. Even you were talking about the small and medium-sized businesses, even me as, the small provider of little potions and creams, I have to look at my logistical costs also because more and more customers actually expect that they can send it back for free. That's another variable that has come into this is the service, the customer is king kind of a picture. So implementing an AI system is just a part of, if you're doing logistics, of the sector, full stop. And, of course, it is more cost efficient, I guess, the bigger you are as a company. But in order to be profitable in the long term, that paradigm switch has to happen.
So first of all, I take this opportunity to thank you and Falco for partnering with us and investing. This is a great thing. And not just because of the money, which is of course always important, but also because exactly what you said, that you guys get it, you understand it. There are always early adopters and people who are more forward thinking, and we thank you for that. The other thing is, you mentioned the return logistics, and maybe I add to that also the environmental aspects of logistics, because they go hand in hand. of course, people, especially in e-commerce, but also in B2B type of logistics, expect to be able to send back whatever is not working for them for whatever reason. It doesn't really make a difference. It's part of the service level that suppliers want to give. But it has to be cost effective and it has to be environmentally sound. Otherwise, you're creating even more carbon footprint and more wastage. And those are documented and known problems. AI can help with those as well. The assumption that AI is a niche application is wrong. We expect, and it's going that way, we see the trends working. We expect AI, as it is in banking, as it is in cybersecurity, as it is already in quite a few areas, we expect AI in logistics to become mainstream. I mean, Raviv and I, my partner and I, we always say, in 10 years from now, looking back, people are going to say, just like they say about the iPhone, how did we ever live without a smartphone? People are going to say, how did we ever even think of running logistics without these type of algorithms? It just doesn't make sense. Maybe like the autonomous vehicle, which still hasn't really happened, but that too. I joke always, I have 5 kids. So my younger kids, I keep telling them, when you'll be parents, your kids are going to ask you, did grandfather actually hold the wheel and press the pedal on the car?
Exactly. Did he have a driving license at all?
Yeah. How did he even dare to do that without AI and these type of technologies? And I think that's what we're going to see.
But you just read my mind. That's just the energy that we have. I was thinking about autonomous logistics, Eldad. Yes. And of course, you as the entrepreneur, me as the investor, we're talking about the paradigm shift. Absolutely. But we do see more and more where the drones are, going backwards and forwards.
Drones,
and there
robots,
is not, yeah, exactly. And there is not necessarily the human error or the package, okay, may drop and just die, fair enough, or just go kaput. However, this is an element that, again, might, I don't want to say disrupt the AI in logistics, but perhaps pivot it a bit. How do you see it?
So autonomy, as opposed to automation, is really the ability of the technology to not only activate aspects, but also think and improve them autonomously, just like we are autonomous beings as humans. Automation has been around for years. Warehouse automation is the great example that everybody brings. And even warehouse robots, which are more autonomous than just automatic, are already in service today. There are quite a few, mostly startups, but bigger startups for the past, let's say, 10 years that are changing the way people operate the warehouses. Autonomy is not only a physical robot or a drone or a loading crane, which is amazing, and it uses the same or similar type of AI. But autonomy can also be automating processes like customs clearance, business processes like payments, processes like we said before, scheduling and resource allocation. Those aspects, once the technology is mature enough and the data is available, and we're still working on some of those aspects, but once that happens, those can be run by autonomous robotic processes. So you may not see an arm moving, but the computer will be making decisions, and maybe computer to computer or computer to human, and running those processes autonomously. And that's going to save lots of time, lots of money, and especially avoid lots of mistakes.
So in the search for the future, okay, me as a logistics company or any kind of corporation that needs to ship my goods that I produce anywhere, how do I have to see my future as in that position? And I want to really make the best out of my logistical possibilities. What do I need to get prepared for? What are the 3 main shifts you see over the next decade or couple of decades? We were just talking about, our children saying, really, did you have a driving license? Oh my God, Tell us, what do we need to get prepared for?
Okay, so I would distinguish between the large logistics companies who are already getting on board, and some of them have in-house teams, some of them are teaming up with suppliers, providers, startups, or more established companies to get on board with AI. And that's that's natural. They have the resources, they have the understanding, they're able to make mistakes in the implementation and take their time, fine. But between them and the rest of the market, and I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of other companies, logistic companies, there are many around the world, there's a big gap. And that gap, I think, I would talk directly to those decision makers in those companies. I think it's about time to get off the fence and not to just wait to see those big guys stepping all over them with advanced technology. It's here, it's now, it's accessible, it's affordable. You can start very small. That's the beauty of at least the way we work, is that you can start with basic analytics. You don't have to have your whole operation fully automated and fully digitalized or whatever to get benefit from what we're doing. And you can focus on specific burning pains. Sometimes it's resource optimization. Sometimes it's loss and damage reduction. Sometimes it can be financials, like I mentioned before, being able to profit or to make that gap or difference between the costing and the pricing more perfect. And those aspects are here and now today. They're available from companies like Amphorica. There are a few others, but they are really not exploratory. They're not like future looking. It's not 10 years or 20 years away. It's here and now. And I think once those companies, those decision makers, it's CEOs, it's CFOs, it's company owners, it's COOs in the operational side. Once those companies and their leadership embrace this way of thinking, then they also get the immediate benefit or a very short-term benefit of it and start to get the feel of how it works. One of the problems, maybe I just add as a side note or a final note here in this context, one of the problems that it sounds to a lot of these people who are not immersed in this technology like we are, it sounds very abstract. Okay, so they understand it, they're intelligent people, but how does it actually work? And my answer is try it. Just do it. It's not something to philosophize about. It's something that you need to put your operations, your data into and see the outcome and be amazed. That's how I saw it when I first learned about machine learning. It was amazing.
Yeah, and I think this is so much to the point, and that is bringing me back to, we talk about complexity that can be extremely exciting, but of course you have to manage that as well, which could have a negative connotation. But what I get from what you were just saying, Eldad, is look, whenever you embark on this type of managing your logistics business or your logistics, whatever you have to ship, is you can also start with these individual puzzles because we can tailor make. So look at your business, say, okay, what is my hottest pain point right now? And you can actually isolate that and really target it with whatever solution. It doesn't need to be, like often you buy your software, right. Microsoft software, and I might not use 80% of whatever is loaded on my PC. I just use those 20%. Like we use 8% of our brain. It's
still completely worth it.
And exactly. And it's still worth it. That's the point. But you don't even have to go, the entire 31 yards with the solution. You can start really step by step, build it up, change it, and really tailor make it. That's one thing I wanted to see that I get from what you were saying. The other thing, and I'm really happy you mentioned that one, Eldad, is, who's actually making the decisions in a company? Who should make a decision on an AI system, an AI solution in the company? And I read a super interesting article not too long ago by one of the big consultancies saying that in a increasingly digital world and also AI-driven world, yes, you do have the CEO. Yes, you do have the CFO. But the chief technology officer is moving really up in the ranks, not in terms of position, but in terms of decision power, because it seems that he brings in the how. Do we do the strategy the CEO together with the board sets? The how of the CFO looking at the budget. How can we all turn this around through the technology we have available today and perhaps also in the future? So the CTO comes more and more into the picture when it comes to even long-term strategy.
And that's amazing that you mentioned that, and I kind of skipped over the CTO almost intentionally because I want to talk about them separately. The CTOs that are already embracing AI are the CTOs that are bringing the most value to the companies, at least in this context, but they may eventually become the CEOs of companies. because they see the link. Like until now, if you had a management IT system, okay, so people understood that it's better to have digital than paper. That's fine. But now they are bringing value to every single aspect of the operations of the company. Financials, operation, quality control, HR, those pieces are coming together through this type of technology. And the CTOs that are already there, and we have amazing conversations with some CTOs who are like, rooting for us and pushing it in their companies. I just want to say again that we need to distinguish between companies that have CTOs and companies that don't.
Yeah. The
medium, small companies either rely on external consultants for technology, or not even that. They just like make decisions kind of in the dark. But again, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't or can't benefit from this type of technology. It's just the decision making happens more at the, let's say, CEO or board level. And that's something that we're seeing more and more. There's another aspect of the technology managers, and that is access to data. And I've seen this shift over even the past, let's say, 5 years. Initially, data was something that you hoard and you hide, and it's your company's secrets. And you don't let anybody external touch it or see it or do anything with it. Today, the opposite is happening. People understand, A, that they have to open it up to their AI partners, and B, that it's beneficial for them, even if their AI partners are working with their competitors, to have that bigger data pool, because algorithms enjoy huge amounts of data. And even if you're a small company or medium company, but your supplier is able to build algorithms with 10 of your likes or 100 of your likes, there's a big advantage for every single stakeholder in that sort of
Absolutely.
realm.
And this is like, the sharing, caring part, because it brings the entire sector forward. And you were mentioning it earlier on that a lot of companies feel uneasy about the total disclosure. They basically have to strip themselves naked and say, okay, this is our data, have a look, please analyze. But at the end of the day, what do you do as a business? What do you do as a human going to the doctor? You first of all, you get all the dirty laundry out, and then you kind of like pick the pieces that needs to be adjusted, and then it goes forward. And in terms of the data lake, I think yes, you're absolutely right. Of course, you have traditional data pools, be it the Amazon logistics or whatever people are looking through, the normal search engine. But of course, if you can be specific, healthcare sector, specific food sector, specific whatever other sensitive or non-sensitive sector, transport has data to share, the algorithm can feed it all in, but still make it specific to whatever your pain or your need.
And there are models and concepts and solutions out there today to keep your data anonymized. So even if you're sharing data, you still keep the most important trade secrets and your names of your customers, for example, under wraps. You don't have to share that at all to make the technology work.
Medical data, exactly. It's like
and the other aspect is that governments or non-commercial organizations are starting to understand the power of this in logistics specifically. And there's, for example, an initiative now in Washington, D.C. To share data between competitors and various sort of stakeholders throughout the chain in the logistics and supply chain area. This is coming from the White House, because they understand that without it, we're going to be stuck with either, again, a few big companies being able to do this, or just taking a very, very long time to implement it. And everybody understands it's the benefit of all of us to the economy to implement this type of technology.
Absolutely. And you mentioning lawmakers, there was a big shift in the European law when it comes to livestock, so animal transportation, that animals need to be transported in a certain way, with a certain dignity, with certain spaces and what have you. And this kind of logistical process, there's so much, I didn't know how much livestock there was being shipped left and right in Europe. It's amazing. It's amazing. And it's not going to let off. So there, the demand is for monitoring, even more important to make sure these animals are good, whether for whatever, whether it is for consumption, whether it is for breeding or what have you. And that is like a real life application, I think, that also touches not only B2B, like business to business, but also the consumer, the customer that then, knows that, hey, yes, I have steak, but not only is it grass fed, but it was treated really well in the entire, let's say, value chain of having my steak right now on the table.
Yes, and you mentioned, and I also maybe forgot to say this in that answer to what are the parts of the puzzle that need to be addressed and adopted. So one of them is connected logistics, having the data, the monitoring data in real time, or even not in real time, not necessarily always in real time, but having it accessible and usable is super important. More and more vehicles and more containers are having these type of IoT devices that are enabling tracking and monitoring. That's a very important data source for our type of algorithms. Operational data, as we mentioned, and quality control data and financial data, but also weather data, traffic data. Being able to bring all of those different types of data in and telling the algorithm, look at everything together, not to compartmentalized, which is the way we've been looking at data until now, but look at it all together and really understand the models, or build the models that understand the patterns and the relationships between those variables to gain the maximum benefit from them.
That's wonderful. And I think this is a fantastic way to end our conversation. As usual, I could talk to you for hours about this fantastic, sector, about how enthusiastic you are and the inroads that Amphorica is really making in the sector as well. And you were mentioning pricing before. And I think a lot of potential customers, clients, partners, as you call them, they are always like, oh my God, AI, it is expensive, it's a different thing, everything needs to be done anew, and that is not necessarily the case. But I think that's a conversation we're going to have another time. You said thank you to us before at Falco Global. I can only say two things. A, we have so much joy in having, being with you on that journey of have Amphorica thrive and do really well, and B, you're also really, we are partners in terms of we feed off each other, and we kind of are included in what you're doing, and we feel included. And that is extremely joyful, apart from, what you do, the sector you're playing in as a team, as a fantastic company. So thank you from our side, if I may say.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, my dear Mentory TV community, for having joined us yet again for a great conversation, this time about AI-powered logistics. That's the future, guys. It seems this is why we at Falco Global did invest in Amphorica. I spoke to Eldad Granot. He's the co-founder and CEO of this Israeli company, Amphorica. So I'm going to speak to his CTO as well. He's also the co-founder in our next video. See you then. Bye.